Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Tourismus Namibia, our weekly online show that we have each Saturday morning. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Tourismus Namibia and obviously also, not obviously, but I am also the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung, the German daily. Welcome to the show, as we've done for the past year and two almost already. We will first bring you some topics, then we'll turn to destinations, and then finally I think we've got quite a nice little interview for you today under To The Point. But before we go there, let's just quickly have a look at the various advertising material that we've got available for you. Welcome back. Topics today. I've looked at a number of items. First and foremost, and I think very importantly, confrontation on Chobe. This was this week, and it's not the first time. Here on the map you can clearly see I've indicated where the Ngoma Bridge is and where the Idaha camps are. Now it's in between there, so you can see it's sort of towards the southeast of Katima Mulilo. Ngoma Bridge is obviously the one that you have to cross into Botswana if you want to go over towards Zimbabwe or Kazangula, near Kazane and those places. But the fact, what troubles me is this is not the first time. If you were to focus in on the map, you would see that this sort of thing, that's fine, we can have a look at the photo. This is the typical thing that you see people using the river, obviously as a transportation, for transportation to and fro. And also, on the other hand, people of the lodges using them to have people going to and fro. Now this is Major General Sebastian Daitunga. He's the boss man or the chief of the police. He's still owing us an answer, or the media an answer, but I'm actually sure that he's actually sort of caught in between various political interests. Because what happened last week is that on the river, we've again found that boats, such as the photo that we've got there, they were suddenly called to the side, and they had to explain why they were on the Botswana side. Now the thing is this, with this drought and then again flooding and whatever, it is hardly possible for any human being to decide when you are on the Botswana side or on the Namibia side. And what worries me is recently we reported about people being killed where the Botswana Defence Force actually shot what they call poachers. The people maintain they were not poachers. Whatever the answer to that is, it's becoming a serious problem. Because it's bad enough that our own people get shot. But now imagine this week they basically told one of these leisure boats to come to the side, cocked their rifles and told them to get out of Botswana. Now this is with tourists on board. And I think it's high time for the politicians to sort out this mess, because I think there seems to be a bit of the haji-baji going on at the moment, because Botswana feels that Namibia needs to share the cost of the whole Chobe exercise of protecting the animals and whatever. There seem to be some sort of agreements on their way with a code of conduct and all that sort of thing. Now that may all be, but there's no time to dilly-dally about this thing. This needs to be in place. Because imagine if we ever came to a situation where a tourist was killed on account of somebody cocking his rifle, and by accident possibly even just killing a tourist. It's a no-brainer. It doesn't go. Never mind the fact that we can't afford to kill our own people. But it's high time to protect tourism and make sure that we've got this thing in order. It cannot be that the BDF simply calls you to the side and then says, what are you doing in Botswana? Because you might even have been in Namibian side. And for that matter, they don't even know sometimes whether they are on the Namibian side or the Botswana side, because it's a matter of meters. So clearly you can see when you've got a tourist in front of you during daylight, or whether you've got a poacher in front of you that is poaching in the middle of the night. Huge difference, and they need to sort this fast. And I think the BDF has to become a bit less trigger happy. I'm not somebody who normally takes sides in this thing, but as far as the tourism sector is concerned, we cannot afford to take any chances, and neither can they, because Botswana will be badly hurt as far as their tourism effort is concerned too. So that's the Chobe. Next up, we've got Kazungula, and this is good news. It's been coming for a while. You can see here, this is the point where Namibia and Zambia and Botswana and Zimbabwe, they all sort of come together. Not Zimbabwe, sorry, it's Angola, Zambia, Namibia and Botswana. But you can see clearly on this picture already the new bridge that has been built. It's a 923-meter long bridge that leads from Kazungula on the Botswana side over to Kazungula on the Zambian side. And I think this will hugely improve tourism connections. It will improve trade connections. I think this is one of the best things that has happened for a long time, similar to the bridge that leads over at Shesheshwe in Namibia, leading from Katima over to Zambia. We need to get these sort of infrastructures into place to make sure that our trade and our tourism can function so much better. I've been on that side years ago, actually seeing one of the trucks of what was then Roadrunners actually drop into the river there because they were on a float going over, and it suddenly collapsed and basically capsized. So fortunately no people lost, but the truck was gone. I think it's still driving around on the bed of the river there. Right, then up next, I've only got one picture that I would like to show you there, but this was about the Sun Women who came together in Windhoek. For the first time, there was a bit of action going on. Say the Okavango, as you can see there in front is one of the Sun Women. There were quite a number, and I thought it was quite well organized. Unfortunately, one of the main speakers that had been invited, Jan Akkerd, he was a geologist and environmentalist from South Africa, he could not come simply because he had contracted corona. But nevertheless, this was a strong meeting that was conducted on Thursday. And it was at that point where the Sun Women spoke out for the first time themselves. And this is obviously about Recon Africa, the oil exploration company that's up in Kavango. And many of these people were there, and they said, no ways, we were not informed, especially the Sun people, in other words, the Bushman folk. They were not asked, they were not informed, and the next thing they knew, this thing was going on. And this is the old story, and I've spoken and written about it a number of times. People keep on talking about Kavango, and then at the same time talking about the Sun folk. The Kavango is not only about the Sun folk, neither is it only about the Kavango folk. Those people coexist in that area. Many Sun, for example, they had brought something like 6 representatives or 6 women from 6 different communities of the Sun communities, who are obviously found in Mangeti, leading up to Kavango, going over into Botswana and so on. So this is serious business. These women were not consulted and they were not informed. And the same applies to Kavango, like I said previously on the show like this. I was there, I saw it, I spoke to the people, and I don't tend to lie about these sort of things. It was important for me to know were they informed, yes or no. Because at the end of the day, it is not only about the Sun or the Kavango, this is about Namibia. The fact that I live in Namibia entitles me to talk about this. And Recon Africa keeps on sidestepping these issues instead of coming out, properly informing people. If they haven't had a proper environmental impact assessment, then they need to admit that and say, how do we address it? How do we fix it? But instead of, they keep on going ever deeper into this sort of one-way street that has no end except into disaster. So that's as far as the Sun Women were concerned. I think they will have follow-up meetings, and I actually discussed it with them that in future on Tourismus Namibia, on our internet site, we will try and cover these things and stream them live for you so that you can follow it yourselves. Right, and then finally just a short little news snippet, Safari Court. They have been finally sold. The way that MarketWatch wrote it and various others, that it was following failed plans to merge with United Africa Group. Safari Hotels and Conference Center announced that it has been acquired by Casada, a group dedicated to hospitality in sub-Saharan Africa. And so on Friday's MarketWatch, you could read up on the fact that it was sold and the fact that Safari Court Hotel will be converted to Mövenpick Hotels and Resorts, while the Safari Hotel itself will become Ibis Styles. Now, this is obviously big news. I mean, Safari Hotels, they had their 50th anniversary, I think 2 years ago, 2019. It's an old institution. I remember as a child when you went to Eros Airport, you had actually left the boundaries of Windhoek, and you had in fact just on the side of Eros there was a Safari Motel in those years. So yeah, Safari finally sold. It has been going on for a while now, so clearly we are moving on in Namibia. Times are changing. And I think, just by the way, it had nothing to do with COVID. It had been in the market for some time now, but I think they're just glad to finally have reached a deal. And for us, it's important because that means this hotel remains on the map. Right, those were our topics. Next up, we've got destinations, but let's just quickly have a peek at the marketplace. Right, destinations up next. Just quickly, by the way, I have been asked about this previously, and I thought it's quite important to inform you that whatever we bring under destinations is not paid content. This is what we do is we try as part of our, call it a community exercise, whatever you call it, doesn't really matter. It is our contribution towards making sure that the tourism industry just flares up again, has more excitement about it, and possibly even has more local involvement in it. So whatever we look up here is stuff that we see and that we find is exciting and might interest you, and then we just talk about it. So these people often do not even know that we promote their places, which is fine by me. Important to me is that you as the listener hopefully have a couple of ideas that you can play around with as you visit Namibia and start learning more about our country. So some of you will remember that recently we had Sophienhof, and it was part of this show, Destinations, where we wrote more about Sophienhof, and with all of its special little accommodation treats. It's here on the map. You can see it's on the left. Uchu is the town that you see there on the right-hand side. So you basically drive out of Uchu, and just as you've left it, you turn on the left towards Korigas. Sorry, and it's not far down the line. You will have the turn off to Sophienhof. Like I said, we had quite a number of items there. Air condition is part of the accommodation. It includes a dining area. With this photo, you might remember that we had it on the show. And there's obviously a nice little terrace, and I remember there was a water point. So there's obviously also a kitchen equipped with a microwave and fridge within all these self-catering accommodations. I remember some of them were more luxurious than the other, and obviously every unit has a private bathroom with a bath or shower. So Sophianorth got me thinking, and I thought, well, Uchu is not only about Sophianorth, there are many other places. So up next, we'll show you a bit about Iyaba Lodge. It's at Bushveld Park, and so if you look at these photos, it's basically just outside town, and it's offering a year-round outdoor pool and views of the garden. Iyaba Lodge is, like I said, at Bushveld Park. It's set in Uchu, or just outside Uchu. But to give you an idea, the Uchu Museum is but a mere 2.8 kilometers away. They offer free Wi-Fi and free parking is available. So this is just to give you an idea what it looks like there. Small but very nicely done. And there's just in front of this is a little pool as well. You can see this is your typical Uchu accommodation, and the reason why we bring you this is more than often you find as you go up towards Etosha, you just quickly want a quick stop, and you don't want to be too far out of town because you still want to stock up in the next morning. And the same applies as if you go to Kokeveld and those areas. So clearly these guys have a very nice little place for you if you want to stop over there. And then up next we've got Etotongwe. I've been staying at Etotongwe quite a number of times. It's hardly discernible on this map I see now, but it's basically just outside the town, and it offers affordable accommodation and camping, as well as conference facilities for business, but more importantly, obviously, once again, for travelers who aim to visit the Etosha National Park. So if you would like to make use, you can actually see in the back there, that's part of Uchu, that's the church as you come in from the northern side. So if you want to use Uchu as a base when exploring places like Etosha, or like I said, Kokeveld or Damraland, then this place is really ideal. On the far side of this little bar and area and dining area, you can actually go towards a little park where they've got some animals running along there. So like I said, they don't have huge camping facilities. I think they've got 4 all in all. Here you can see they've got a couple of animals that they've put out in a little fenced in area. This is clearly a photo made by one of the cameras that sort of watch over these animals. That's Etotongwe. Up next, we then have Bushberg Guest Farm. It is just outside as well. If I say just outside, this is a bit further up because you follow basically the road up to Etosha, and it's about 60 kilometers outside Uchu along the road to Etosha, and then you turn off to the left. It offers a restaurant and an outside swimming pool and a shared lounge. Typically, this is a guest farm sort of environment. You have free Wi-Fi, however, and then obviously a continental breakfast is available every morning at the farm stay, and a garden and a terrace are offered to the guests. This is, as I said, typical guest farm environment. Where you stop over as you go up to the north and try and find different destinations. But as you can see, it's a nice stopover, and who knows, you might even want to spend a day there because farming activities are often more interesting than most people would imagine. There's always something to see and to learn, and I'm sure you can actually join them on a little drive and so on. Right, and then up next, the other one that I saw that was interesting was Sasa Safari Camp. This is actually still as you approach Uchu. Now, you can see they're right at the bottom. I was able to still sneak in the description. So it's on the road as you go, the road that leads up to Uchu called the M63. It's basically leading up from Kalkveld in Omaruru. So it's before you come to Uchu. And it's very close to the local airstrip as well. And it's in the middle of the bush and offers rustic bungalows built out of natural stone, as you can see on the photos. And it has a swimming pool as well as a restaurant and bar. And they all feature private patios and views of the greenery out there outside the little bungalows. And they're fitted with modern sort of wooden furniture. And they include an ensuite bathroom with shower. And Wi-Fi is available, but at request. So I just thought, just to show you, it's still very nicely done, and it's all built with natural stone. They've got a hiking trail of 3 kilometers, and they've also got a volleyball court all. And they organize activities like day trips to the Etosha National Park, the Petrified Forest, or the Finger Clip, which you obviously find as you go towards Korigas. And they've got a freshly prepared breakfast every morning, but dinners and lunches need to be ordered so that's only on request, and they're then served in buffet style. So common barbecue facilities are available, and also a shared kitchen if you would like to self-cater. So that's Sasa Safari Camp. Also another option if you are at Uchu. Like I said, it's not always only about the lodges. It's also about driving up to the north, having covered I don't know how many kilometers that day, before you want to go on to Etosha to, you know, stay near Uchu, replenish your stuff, and then be ready to go on to Etosha or Kalkveld the next morning. Because Uchu actually has some very nice spa shops and bakeries and all types of facilities there, so very nice. The other one that I found interesting was Tarantal Lodge. This is now obviously, again, quite some bit out of town already. As you drive along the road to Etosha National Park, and you will find that lodge is on the left-hand side there. The turnoff is approximately 70 kilometers north of Uchu, and you will get to the lodge by turning onto the D2695. So it offers accommodation with free Wi-Fi once again, air conditioning, access to a garden with outdoor swimming pool area. So this is once again your typical overnight stop as you go to Etosha, or once you've left it, and allows you to still enjoy outdoors, as you can see there. Very nicely done. By the way, those of you who wonder Tarantal Lodge, what it would mean, Tarantal is obviously the Afrikaans word for a guinea fowl. Like you can see, very nice gardens, and I mean, this is an area that is normally very dry, so I find it very nice to go to such sort of places. Pretty much like the ones that we recently spoke about at Annep Lodge and Farmstall and those sort of areas down in the south. Always in dry areas, so it's always nice to come to these places, have a little pool, because make no mistake, up in the north it's very hot. Okay, even in summer, by the way, you will hardly ever wear your jacket. Up next, we've got, you will also recall some shows back we had we spoke about Hea Lodge, just outside Windhoek. I still brought you an interview that I had with the manageress at the time. And so Hea has just started to look at another site, not started, they've been around obviously. And this site that they've got is what they call Las Vegas, Namibia. So it's not your typical Las Vegas, but it is a beautiful private and what they call self-catering camp near Windhoek. It's on your road to Otjehase, and the camp is rented out as a whole. So they've got 10 chalets that accommodate a maximum of 23 sleeping guests, and there are no camping facilities. So Jereen Hoff provided the following video to me.
What a welcome getaway from the city. A group of family and friends recently spent a wonderful weekend at Las Vegas, Namibia, a beautiful self-catering camp near Windhoek. In actual fact, it is located just north of Hea Lodge, who also manage it, en route to the Ochehazi mine. The camp is rented out as a whole, with 10 comfortable chalets that accommodate up to 23 sleeping guests. Good news is that bedding is also provided. There's no shortage of game, which you can enjoy watching at the waterhole while enjoying some sundowners. The space, inside and out, is very well appointed, with everything you may need for a special event, breakaway, team building exercise, birthday party, you name it. Cutlery and crockery are provided. Better yet, staff responsible for the cleaning are on hand at all times. While only the biggest chalet has an ensuite bathroom, there are communal ablution facilities for guests, with donkeys that are lit up to ensure that you have a wonderfully warm shower early morning or before you hop into bed. While it was too cold for us to swim when we visited, there is a pool for hot summer days, and if the pool doesn't keep the little ones busy, there's a jungle gym for them to play on, or bring their bikes along since there is a lot of cycling space. The braai area, which includes a boma to warm you up on winter nights, also features a spit braai. Only 20 minutes drive from Windhoek, Las Vegas is the perfect spot for a quick getaway without having to pack yourself silly. For more information or to make a booking, visit their Facebook page.
Yeah, as you can see, so often one finds that you've got this birthday bash or whatever, you've got a couple of friends who want to be together, but you don't want to be part of a lodge where, you know, other people interfere with what you do. So this would be a typical alternative for you if you would like to do that. So I was very impressed by that, I must admit. So that brings us to the end of our destinations today. Up next, we've got To the Point. And but before we go there, let's just have another peek at the marketplace. Yeah, welcome back. So earlier this week, I spoke to Dr. Dani van Vuren of Nangkuse. I've been saying this so often now that I think slowly but surely I'm getting it right. We had a bit of a talk about what Nangkuse does, and obviously his ideas about what should be done and what shouldn't be done. Remember, we spoke on the show previously about the project down at Canaan, where they've got that project for the hyenas, and we briefly spoke about the lions that have just been saved from up in Kokerveld. So let's just have a look at that talk that I had with Dr. van Vuren. Welcome back. As you can see, I'm not alone in the studio any longer. It's Dr. Rudy van Vuren who's joined us. He's of Nangkuse. I think that's a better one. We tried it just now and it wasn't the best effort.
Yeah, you're getting better every time.
So let's see how it goes by the end of the show.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome here. And we've obviously invited Dr. van Vuren to tell us a bit more about Nangkuse, as most of us will simply know it. It's obviously all as, you know, you're really concerned about animals, but you started off differently, as you explained.
Yeah, we started off with a clinic that we started for the San community in the east of Namibia, in Epukiru, in 2006, where we provide free healthcare to the San community in that area. And still today, we provide free healthcare to them. We see about 4,500 people from the area every year. 40% of those are children. And then, obviously with my wife Marlies being very involved with animals and animal care and animal welfare, we started a sanctuary where injured or problem animals could go to. And that escalated into we wanted to see why animals come into conflict and why animals get into problems. So we started doing research on that side of things. While Marlies was more focused on the care of the animals, I started developing into the research side of things. And so Nankuse has grown over the years to encompass a large range of things that we do.
And that's exactly why I originally asked Dr. van Vuren to come onto the show, because some of you might remember, I think it's about 4 or 5 shows ago, we talked about the hyenas down the south. So maybe before we can go any further, I felt this was totally different because you know, I'm really a big fan of the desert horses, but I still maintain that the hyenas were there before them. And so I always feel there needs to be a balance between all of these things. But tell us more.
Yeah, the research that we do at Nankuse is focused on human-wildlife conflict and relevant conservation topics. You know, a lot of research in this country gets done because someone wants to get a PhD or a master's, and it leaves our country. We do research so that we can produce evidence, and that evidence we try and use to change legislation or change opinion or change a situation. And that's exactly what we did with hyenas. The hyenas is a contentious topic. You've got the wild horses, you've got the hyenas, you've got conflict with farmers down in the south. And we started researching these hyenas because the last work we could find on it was done in the late 70s.
Wow.
And so our whole aim with that hyena research was to produce evidence to show what hyenas eat and how they move and are they involved in conflict and where do they move. And that was a hard work by our researcher there, Carl Fester, and eventually published the paper, which we're very proud of.
Yeah. And so what is the bottom line, really? Because, I mean, let's face it, at the moment we report about it. The wild horses are improving again, and I think it's partly because of the drought that has obviously caused them not to always come towards food and feeding grounds, which really made the hunting of horses easier for the hyena, is it not?
Yes. We saw a couple of interesting things about the hyenas that we looked at. The hyenas that we looked at were 2 clans on a property called Kanan, and we looked at their diet, and we couldn't find any evidence that they were involved in livestock predation. They mainly fed on natural prey, oryx, ostriches, things like that, and we couldn't find any evidence of them preying on the horses. But in saying that, they are not at Aus. They are
further up.
They're further up. But what was interesting is that at a certain stage we collared one of the hyenas, and that he moved through the dunes all the way to Aus. Unfortunately, he was shot there in Aus. But they do move, and they sense that there are territories that open up. So when some of the hyenas in the Aus area were taken out, these hyenas obviously knew in some way that there's a territory, that there's space for them. And it's a long way from Kanan to Aus through the dunes.
Yeah, and I remember as a child, I grew up in Ludwitz, we spoke about it earlier, and we had these strandwolven. And they would also go right up to the coast and then go inland again. So these things are actually quite capable,
Yeah, it's incredible when you start researching this. We've published 8 papers in the last 10 years, and we've learned so much. And the more we learn, the more we know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm actually quite sure that those sort of research results, I'm sure you would now share with the likes of Gondwana and those guys who really are behind the protection of the wild horses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think without tourism, researchers will struggle. Our research at Kanan, for instance, the tourism facilities at Kanan supported his work and funded his work. And we share that information. That information we want to share as much as possible, because it's things that can change how we make decisions about wildlife management. It is evidence that can change legislation. So yes, that research over the years we've made public, and we've given it to anyone who wants to see it.
So now, changing over from that to the next theme, we've discussed it just quickly before the interview now, but my argument, and the listeners who listen more regularly will know that one of my arguments is it's no matter what you do at the moment with the lions up in Kaokoland, it just seems to be there's no solution, no real solution. And in the meantime, the lions find themselves between a rock and a hard place because humans cannot decide what they want. We do not want to feed them. On the other hand, we don't want them to die, and we also don't want to shoot them. Mm-hmm. So now you've accepted some of these lions into your care for the moment. Tell us a bit more about how you see this thing, number one, how it came to be, and number two, where you see this thing going towards.
Well, I think firstly we must make it clear what role Nankuse plays. We started what we call a rapid response unit in 2012, where we respond to farmers who have conflict with carnivores or needs advice or whatever. So we've got a team that usually goes to situations like that, assesses the situation and then gives advice, or collars the animal and lets it go free and shares the data. So that rapid response unit is what we do. So in terms of the lions in the northwest, we are by no means experts in the field there. I mean, Flip Stanner is there, the Desert Lion Human Relations Organization is there, the government is involved there, the community is involved there. So we don't know the ins and outs of the area.
Yeah.
What we understand is that because of the drought and because of not enough prey, that the lions are really hungry. And when they're hungry,
which we saw on the videos.
Which we see, so when they're really hungry, the human-wildlife conflict obviously increases. So our role is just, if the government asks for someone to assist with a rapid response, we're always willing to help. So we went and we relocated these lions at our cost. The lions remain the property of the government, and we now put them through a process of rehab. So, you know, they're very underweight at the moment. It will probably take 6 to 9 months for them to get back to normal weight. And from there, they will then go into an area where they hunt again for themselves, and then they will be released in a protected reserve of 33,000 hectares, or wherever the government decides that they must go. We've always said that we are very open to the fact that they can go back to the northwest once they are rehabilitated. Yeah. But that's also a call that the government must make, not us. Yeah. And in the research we've done on cheetahs and leopards over the years, we have seen that when you translocate these animals from a conflict to a non-conflict situation, and it's a long-distance translocation, like what happened now.
Big,
they don't show any homing instinct. They don't show they want to come back. And if you then release them in an area where the conflict potential is low, the conflict doesn't happen again, and you have relative success with that. So what will happen with these lions is totally up to how things develop in the northwest, and it's totally up to if we can find enough reserves where we can release them. At the moment, we have space for them, and so I hope we can solve the issues in the northwest, because the desert lions is an asset to our country. People want to see them.
Exactly, because no matter where you take it now, it would not be your typical desert surrounding, would it be?
No, I mean, that's a unique area. Yeah. It's a unique species to be there, and we must try and protect that asset.
Yeah. If you say species, obviously you mean in terms of being adapted to that
Just
area.
Adapted,
yeah. Because what sort of struck me is you've obviously solved the problem for now, but if I understand it, there's still more than 100 animals running around there. So the problem is not really solved. No. We were only able to help a few up to now. And so my question would now be, clearly there needs to be a better understanding from the public side to understand that the whole hunting situation up there needs to be controlled better. Is it not really that as a source problem?
As I said, we're not involved in that. We're not experts in that field. For now, we have solved the animal welfare question, because it's a better option to take those animals away and look after them in terms of welfare than just to shoot them and let them die and rot there in the desert.
Exactly, because they would now literally die of hunger.
They would literally die of hunger, and that to me is, you know, that's scandalous. If they're going to die of hunger, that's not the right thing. In terms of animal welfare, I think the government has done the right thing. In terms of long-term solutions,
we need to find it.
They need to find the solutions there.
And just quickly, right at the end of the show now, because I will invite you for further follow-up, as we discussed earlier, just explain quickly to our people to make them understand how old our laws are, and number one, what the point of each law is.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing that we as Namibians must really look at. We don't have laws in place that protects the welfare of animals. Now, in saying that, I want to make it very clear that I'm not an animal rights activist.
Yeah.
But the welfare of animals are protected by laws from 1962, the Animal Protection Act. And that act doesn't speak well to the Nature Conservation Ordinance of 1975. There's another law, the Veterinary Act, but that's more applicable to veterinarians, of 2013. And there's an agricultural law that's with the Ministry of Agriculture that's more to do with import and export and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the two main laws that deal with animal welfare is the Nature Conservation Ordinance of 1975 and the Animal Protection Act of 1962. And that's something we need as a nation to look at, because we need to protect the welfare of animals. The whole world is aware of animal welfare.
Exactly, because if we look at what happened with the lions now, I think we all knew it was they weren't doing well. I know for a fact that we've been speaking on this show for a number of months now, but somehow it didn't click until the international community was activated and suddenly everybody said, hey, but surely this cannot be. And so I tend to agree with you. We need to find plans that work, strategies that don't start only with solving the immediate problem, but having a long-term solution, because either we want desert lions or we don't, but then we must say so that, and it sounds bad if I say it on a tourism show, but then rather shoot all 100 animals and you know that at least there's not one walking around dying of hunger, because I don't think it's fair that we as humans create the problem and then not find a solution.
No, absolutely. I think the protection of animal welfare shouldn't be an emotional thing, shouldn't be social media pressure and things like that. There should be proper laws based on science, based on evidence that looks at animal welfare, and that those laws should be updated and should govern the way we look after animals.
Yeah. Okay, and the reason why I actually asked Dr. Van Vuuren to come here is, number one, the hyenas, to me, was an interesting aspect, because it was like upside down for a change. and the second thing, I think it's very important to make this difference. About a week ago, we still spoke about the elephant with the nickname of Apollo that was rummaging around Swakopmund for a while and ended up on Namibia as well. And I think the important takeaway from this interview is that those things are not accepted as your property, but rather as something you take care of until a permanent solution is found.
Yeah, we are merely custodians.
Yeah.
You know, I think in the long term, we often speak about hunting, generating income for conservation, but tourism creates income as well for conservation. And we should consider that, how we support conservation in the long term. But we are merely custodians, and we can only look after the animals in the end.
Thank you very much for coming in. And like I said, bad luck for you. I'll have to invite you back again.
Thanks, Frank. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for watching. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed the talk, and I must admit that I will certainly have him back in our show. Because there's so much of the other angles that they still cover at Namibia, and I would really want to find out more about that. But the interesting thought of this whole thing that I want to leave as a reminder to you is that he really just sees himself as a custodian. There seems to be that habit of whenever somebody does something good, somebody will have an opinion about it without having made the effort themselves to try and help. this is the man who helps. So I'm just not prepared to not to mention that we need these sort of people in our country. So I hope you enjoyed the interview, and we've got an interesting other opinion piece in regards to the Lions coming up next week. So with that, I'll leave you for today, and hope you have a nice weekend. Until then, bye.
If you're feeling how I'm feeling and you know I won't stop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. If I got it and you want it and you'll never let it drop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. I will ride for you, baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.